What's up, everyone? It's Hattie again, ready to bring you another scouting report for the Habs 2022 NHL draft picks. So this time around, we'll be looking at Vinzenz Rohrer, the Habs 75th pick in the draft, and I was pretty impressed with what I saw from him. We'll get into it in a second. I just wanted to remind you guys to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and just to leave me a comment if you have any suggestions. And I'm also curious to know who your favorite prospect is among the players that the Habs selected in 2022. So let me know down below. So let's get into it now. So he's a September birthday, so one of the youngest players available in the draft. So he's got a lot of room to grow into his frame. He's listed as 5'11", 168 pounds, but I think he's a bit shorter than that. Having seen him in person at the draft, he seemed a bit shorter than that, but I'm not really worried because, again, he's so young. He's got a lot of room to grow into that frame, and we'll get into it when the footage comes around, but he's really good physically as well. He split his time between center and right wing, and he's a right shot player, so something the Habs could definitely need, especially given his style of play. He actually led his 67th team in points with 48 points in 64 games. So he was actually just second behind Jack Beck, a sixth-round pick from last year in terms of points per game, because Jack Beck missed a lot of time, but still ended with 44 points. And he was tied with three other players in the playoffs for points with four in the postseason. So played pretty well and upped his game when it mattered, which is always a good sign. So the three games I've got data and footage for. First, I've got this April 16th game against Kingston, in which he earned an assist. I've also got his March 19th game against Hamilton, in which he earned a goal. And finally, I've got his February 13th game against Mississauga, 5-0 loss, in which he obviously earned no points. So those are three games I've got data and footage for. So let's get right into it. I'll show you guys the data set, and then we'll move on to the footage. So data set wise, there's a lot to look at, so we'll go through this pretty quick. I've already highlighted the important stuff. So first, he played a lot of time on the power play. He also spent a decent amount of time on the penalty kill in the sample, and it was good to see him in both situations. First, let's focus on the shots here. I think his shooting's really just decent, nothing more. Even though he had more goals than assists during the season with Ottawa, I think he was really using his off-puck positioning to find chances. On the puck, he gets pushed along the boards a lot. He won't necessarily gain the middle of the ice on the puck. It's really off the puck that he does most of the work to find open space and get to the slot. So really sort of average shooting stats. Then we move on to the passing. That was pretty average as well in terms of the sample I had, especially at even strength. Only 72% of his passes succeeded. But what's really impressive to me is that when he does pass to high danger areas, he usually succeeds. Actually, his success rate on high danger passes was higher than his overall success rate at even strength, which is always promising to me. That means that when he passes with a purpose. And connects with his teammates more often than not in those areas. And the volume was pretty good as well. 21.1% of his passes were to high danger areas. So he tempts passes at a regular basis into those areas and succeeds on most of them. It's always a good sign. Moving on to puck retrievals, I was really impressed with this as well. Usually an undersized forward, you'll see more loose puck retrievals and contested puck retrievals, but he was tied in both metrics, and he won a large majority of his contested puck battles, which is something I really like to see. Face-off-wise, though, he wasn't much to write home about. He faced off against Shane Wright in the Kingston game, and that's actually the game where he earned the most face-off wins and had the highest percentage. In the other two games, though, he was facing up against lesser centers on lesser teams, and still wasn't really that impressive. I think there was one game where he won 1 out of 7 or 8 faceoffs. So that's one of the many reasons I think he'll be a better winger than a center. Now moving on to the play driving, Ottawa really got shelled in the sample. 22 scoring chances, 22 shot attempts for versus 42 against. It's not really good to see. Same for high danger chances. It was mostly in the other team's favor. So not much to write home about there, but in transition, he's really good. He crosses lines a lot. He's not the type of player to carry it across all 3 lines a lot. He averaged 1 of those a game, but what he likes to do is carry the puck across a line or two and then make a smart pass and play give and go with his teammates. And defensively, he was really impressive to me. 12 takeaways for 7 turnovers, so he was mostly winning back possession for his team rather than giving it away. And he was really disruptive on the puck. And for a shorter guy, he was pretty comfortable throwing his body around. So these are all really good signs that we have a very strong forechecking player with a lot of intensity to his game. That reflects itself in the footage, which we'll get into right now. So Rohrer is going to be number 24 in red or in white. So first we're going to start with his skating. I love his shin angle. His knee bends really well above of his toes to create a sort of spring-like motion in his stride, which helps him build momentum when he's making his way up the ice. His leg kick does lose some of that momentum, though, which isn't ideal, and it's something that can be worked out. And he's also sort of unstable in his upper body, so he's connected at the hips, so his upper body and his lower body don't necessarily move independently, which makes him sort of jolt up and down when he's skating. But he uses his crossovers really well to build up speed and transition, and he digs into the ice really well, so he bends his knees very far to grab more ice with his stride. Here you're going to see a couple plays of him on the double drop play on the power play. It's a set play that teams like to run on the man advantage to gain the zone, and it's because of how good he is at building speed through transitions. He's also really good on pivots. He can catch pucks mid-pivot as well, which helps him play pucks quicker, which is always something that I like to see in a prospect. It's a very projectable element. And here's a great goal that he scored. He intercepts that cross-lane pass and burns the defender using crossovers to get a lone for a goal. And in general, I like the way that he attacks at angles rather than straight at the defender, but he gets boxed out to the outside a bit too easily. Here's another example of that. So there's a lot of projectable stuff in his skating, and he uses it really well in transition, but he'll need to polish his stride and get stronger on his feet. Next up is probably the best element of Rohrer's game, and that's his intensity. So it starts in the defensive zone, where you see him here sort of lay it all out on the ice to prevent a shot from going through. He also puts a lot of pressure on breakout players to turn defense into offense. He uses his center of gravity to get low and change directions quickly to react to play accordingly. He also uses his positioning really well. He's a thorn in the sides of opponents in transition, and he never quits on plays. He can also win puck races, get involved physically, using his stick and body extremely well in order to create separation and give himself an extra chance or two to make a play. Again, here it turns into offense for his team. Here's another example of him winning a puck race and making a play. Does a really good job of pushing off the defender, using his core strength and his stick really well in order to gain himself an extra yard of space to make a play through. He's also really comfortable sitting back and settling in between his defenders, reading and reacting instead of chasing play. And he's also just extremely disruptive. He communicates really well with his teammates too, as you're going to see here. So really just a thorn in the sides of his opponents at all times, never quitting on plays, always putting in the extra effort in order to create turnovers. So just a really strong defensive player. He was especially good on the PK, where he made a lot of little plays that show me that he's able to anticipate play. He's able to force opponents into bad situations. And also he's really good as a net front presence. He frees his stick up very well. He ties up defenders in front of the net and works around them. He uses his core strength to push off or stay on his feet when he's challenged physically. And in general, he drew a lot of penalties this way, as you're going to see here. Battling with the player, he earns a holding penalty just by having that intensity within his game. His intensity also shows up in his board play, where he uses his body really well to cut off opponents' hands and maximize his chances on those 50-50 pucks. What he does a lot is he focuses on establishing body positioning before even trying to make a play on the puck. This is something that's really projectable, that the best undersized forecheckers do really well. A guy like Lucas Raymond does this all the time. It's called position before possession. So focus on body positioning, then try to make a play on the puck. He also loves to tie players up along the boards and have his teammates come in and dig the puck out. He battles extremely hard in those situations, and most of the time he's able to win position battles in front of the net to get his stick on shots and redirect them when the time is right. So there's just a lot of facets to his intensity that make it really projectable as a part of his game. I also really like Rohrer's small ice skills and passing, which combine really well to make him a solid playmaker. He's able to spin off pressure in tight spaces and make plays in the phone booth pretty much. He can thread the needle through seams on the power play really well using his passing. And on the power play especially, he can fool defenders really well using a quick move in order to gain the zone and set up for his team offensively. Another great thing about his play is that he's really good on the breakout. He uses his slick moves and smart passes in order to advance play and set up offensively. And probably my favorite part of his game is how good he is at absorbing opponents and making plays through them. So he draws them in, he ties them up, then he makes a play to his teammates to give him just a lot more space to work with. You're going to see that here again as he delays for a second, waits for the opponent to engage physically, and then makes a pass through them. And he's going to gain the zone. That's another of his weaknesses with the puck is that he gets pushed to the outside a lot. But again, here's another example of him delaying, waiting for an opponent to close in, and then passing through them as they try to body check him. So really smart in that sense. Again, just uses seams really well. He's got great vision, and although he could stand to scan a bit more before touching the puck, he locates the options in front of him very quickly, and his intensity makes up for a lot of the shortcomings that he has in terms of skill. He can saucer pucks, he can catch them mid-pivot so that he doesn't slow down the pace of play, and generally he has a lot of tools that make him a solid playmaker. Rohrer's defensive game is also decent, but there are some things that he needs to work on. He does a great job using his intensity and his positioning to block shots, and he isn't afraid at all to put in second or even third efforts to get in the way of shooting lanes, or even dive headfirst into a passing lane in order to intervene and block a pass just like this. And again, just does a great job of positioning himself in front of shooters. But sometimes he'll get lost in his own zone. I mentioned his lack of scanning in the playmaking section. Well, it causes a goal here because he identifies his threat a bit too late. And he's pretty porous in transition as well. He's easy to get around, and that's mainly because he's focusing on the puck instead of the opponent's body language. So he can get burned with a quick move. He's pretty susceptible to that, and that's something he'll need to work on in order to make sure that he becomes a solid defensive forward at the NHL level one day. Rohrer's intelligence and pro-ready habits really shine in transition, where he does a great job of catching opponents flat-footed, and then he delays really well to open up lanes for shots or passes. Another great habit he has in transition is to attack at angles instead of barreling down the ice. So he's going to weave in and out, he's going to weave left and right, and that makes sure that he stays open off the rush. There are also many scenarios a game where he finds space for a short break, but then his teammates don't identify the opening and he doesn't get the puck, like here. That leads me to believe that Rohrer's play is going to improve with better teammates, since most of the time NHLers are able to identify those opportunities, and more often than not, they would be able to get him the puck in instances like these, where just a small chip on the backhand would get him the puck on a break, but it doesn't connect. His hands also help him a ton to open up space, beat a wave of pressure, and then delegate to his teammates so that they have a clear path to the offensive zone. And a lot of his transition plays start with him making just a great defensive read, and then jumping into the rush as a forward. So here's a great example of that. He gets a stick on the puck, and as they're breaking out, he's going to present a stick for his teammate to pass him to, and then he's going to draw the defender in and zip the pass through him as soon as he engages for a puck check. This sequence here really shows Rohrer's strengths and weaknesses. He's going to recover his own dump in and then cut back, which is a great habit. But once he does, he doesn't have the high-end inside play to make a move towards the middle of the ice. So working on that would make his transition play really hard to deal with. Lastly, Rohrer's shot selection does need some work. He's going to try shots from awkward angles when he's got a pass option in the slot, like you're going to see right here. He can get in a shooting position pretty quickly, though. He can collect pucks mid-pivot and shoot them on net pretty well. He's even got some dare and creativity about him, as you're going to see on this between-the-legs attempt. But he doesn't make the best decisions when shooting most of the time. When he does opt for a pass, though, it's more often than not the smart play, so at least there's that. But he does get angled to the outside pretty easily and does end up taking unfavorable shots as a result of that. These next two clips are really going to show that. So what I think is that working on getting inside opponents when carrying the puck, cutting across defenders' hands, and challenging the goalie from the middle of the ice will probably fix a lot of his shot selection problems. So to recap, Rohrer's intensity and physical prowess in all three zones, his transition speed and agility, his small area puck skills, his pro-ready off-puck habits, combined with his mental quickness, resilience, and determination, are a versatile set of tools that make him a multifaceted forward. They help him be an outstanding forechecker, a great puck carrier, a smart defensive player, and a good playmaker, which gives him value on both special team units. If he can work on improving his skating stride even further, on getting inside the dots for scoring chances, if he can work on his shot selection and his accuracy to be a more lethal scorer, and more importantly, if he learns to scan his shoulder check more frequently while also incorporating deception into his passing, he's got a bright future. But that's a long list of things that need to fall into place for that to happen. He's likely going to be a bottom six role player who's going to chip in on both special team units, sort of like Jordan Wheel was for the Habs, but there's a world where his mental resilience and determination help him improve his game massively and he becomes a second-line forward. At worst, I see a depth piece or an AHL scorer in him. So that's all for me today. Thanks so much for watching all the way until the end. If you like what you saw, please leave a like or subscribe to the channel so that you never miss a video. And in the next few days, I'll be going over Cédric Guindon's game under the microscope, and we'll keep going until we've gone through all 11 of the Habs picks this year. I'll leave you guys with my question for the day. Which 2022 NHL draft prospect do you like the most, or which one has you the most excited? Until next time, Hattie out.